Hello, fabulous friends and fans. Welcome to your horoscope for the week of April 20th, 2014. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. So, very first thing right off the bat, because I do tend to treat these weekly horoscopes as a little bit more informal, just slightly more informal than I do the monthly horoscopes. And I know that you guys are so amazing and so enthusiastic, and I'm so grateful for it. You know that usually by the time this week starts, I like to have the monthly horoscopes up for the following month. And that's mainly because I am so forward looking. I know how eagerly I anticipate horoscopes coming up ahead. And so I like to put them out early. And I know that a lot of you have come to look forward to that early delivery. However, as you may also know, 2 weeks ago, I shared with you that we've been having some adventures in tech. So this cardinal cross that I've been talking about has been hitting parts of my chart that have to do with the smooth flow of business and that have to do with my work, my contribution and what I do. And so as part of this month, really we've had the website crash, and now it's being rebuilt better than ever, able to handle a lot more traffic, and now includes a mobile version as well for those of you who'd been asking for that for a while. And so I'm really excited about that. To me, this is about using this energy to our advantage, or at least to the advantage of what it is that I'm meant to share and what I'm meant to give. And so I absolutely trust what's taking place. However, what this has also meant is that my schedule has been taken back a bit. And so while I love getting those videos out to you early, I am going to ask if you would be very kind to allow me a few extra days. Usually by the start of this week, I like to have those videos up, but it will be around the end of this week that you can expect the monthly videos to be ready for you. And again, I thank you so much for your viewership, for sharing, for liking, for interacting, for reaching out, for your enthusiasm, all of it. It is just such a blessing, and I thank you for it. So what we also have, just I got to get this out of the way as well. For those of you who like to jump ahead the intro, please do just click on the timestamp next to your sign and that'll jump you ahead. Although I do encourage you to listen to the intro because it talks about what all of us as a collective are likely to experience in some of our universal lessons, which ultimately are personal lessons as well. So what we have happening this week is, and this is something that I've been sharing over the last few weeks, actually, with the Cardinal Cross. It is one of the more active moments of the Cardinal Cross in the first half of the week. And then in the second half of the week, the energy begins to shift dramatically as we start to prepare for what I'm seeing as a really positive solar eclipse taking place towards the end of the month. So next week, and I'll be here to talk about it then. But I share this with you, and I start off with you with this because I'm really hoping that all of us out there can keep perspective. It's all about perspective, and it's also all about decisions. It's choice, and it's also interpretation. It's about using whatever energies are there to our advantage to move us towards greater love and greater wisdom in our own lives and as a collective as well. And so at the beginning of the week, we have a perfection of this Cardinal Grand Cross taking place. We've got Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. We've got Mars in the sign of Libra. We've got Pluto in the sign of Capricorn. And of course, we have Uranus in the sign of Aries. And these heavy hitters, I mean, these are major power players in the sky. And within a span of, in some cases, a few hours, in some cases, a couple days, within that time span, each of these players is going to reach an exact moment in this conversation as part of this configuration in the sky. And this is a time when our desire for change is especially heightened. Our desire to begin again is especially heightened, and it can feel like the change is not coming fast enough. Ultimately, this is an energy about being honest with ourselves, as I've shared before. It is an energy that's taking into account our freedom, which is Uranus, taking into account our growth and expansion and increasing a sense of hope, which is Jupiter, taking into account our desire for change and our power to make it happen, our empowerment, which is Mars, and also taking into account our desire to be reborn, to rise from whatever ashes are there as better versions than we were before, and that is Pluto. So you put these together, each one of us in our own lives in some way is experiencing these energies at play and is experiencing this desire for change, for better, for more. And if you can, in the midst of all these changes, strive to flow with what is taking place, you are going to find that you are able to summon tremendous motivation on the one hand, but also what I really like about this energy, honestly, is this is the energy that's needed for the breakthrough to happen. It's like the universe is setting the stage so that we really come to admit to ourselves what needs change before the inspiration can really be welcomed, before we're able to really recognize the messages that are able to find us, which way that change could be. We have to first acknowledge our discontent, or as I've called it, and some of you have enjoyed me saying this, but I consider it a sacred discontent. And ultimately it is sacred because it is about getting us to identify our power, where we want change, and to make moves, to actually do something about it, to move in the direction that we desire to go. And so, as I said, the beginning of the week, we've got this cardinal cross, being all cardinally and crossy, as I like to say. And it might be more challenging for some signs than others, but if you can flow with it, if you can navigate it, if you can let whatever emotions rise, to be honest with yourself, by the time we get you to the second part of the week, that's when some really great information starts to find us. And really it starts with a few things that are taking place. One is Mercury will change signs in the middle of the week and move into the sign of Taurus. Now, Taurus is an earth sign, so it gives it a certain practicality. But I think this is also an element of, when I think about Taurus, the energy, it's very much about honoring the moment. My friend Julie Simmons likes to say that Buddha was a Taurus, and that's because some of the meditation is about being completely present, focusing on the experience of being alive, absolute awareness of the five senses as a spiritual path. And so with Mercury moving into the sign of Taurus, there is an element of us perceiving things really in the moment, in the present, and with a practical lens, which should be really helpful, which should be grounding, which is what Earth does. It grounds us. But what we also have happening is, in the second part of the week, we will have that Mercury then move on to meet the sun in the sky. Now, Mercury and the sun meet quite a bit, several times in any given year. And they do this because Mercury likes to hang out close to the sun, never more than 2 signs apart from the sun. And Venus as well is never more than 2 signs away from the sun. And so these planets tend to conjunct and meet in the sky quite a bit. And so with Mercury meeting the sun in the sky, this does tend to suggest a light coming on, ultimately, which is what it says. It could be changing your mind, seeing things from another perspective. Now, it tends to be not quite as dramatic as, say an eclipse might be, but it is sort of an enlightening taking place. And you add to this the fact that Venus is going to be speaking in harmony with Saturn right around the same time. And I put these together, and it suggests to me that while at the beginning of the week there's all this emotion, there's all this sort of tense energy that's asking to be utilized in some way, there's all this feeling that something's got to change, and it's got to change right now, and I know what the change is, and I need it to manifest, and I need this and I need that. That energy gives way to an understanding of just how easy it can be, that it doesn't have to be a fight, that there can be a certain flow that takes place to this. Towards the end of the week, this idea of the flow setting in really starts to set in very prominently, because what we have right at the end of the week is both Mercury and the Sun traveling close together will begin to speak in harmony with Neptune. Now, Neptune is about the dream. It's about the ideal vision. It's faith. It's inspiration. And when we have these two planets speaking with Neptune in this way, it is about bringing the inspired version, the imagination, to actually translating that, what ordinarily would be a feeling, into words and into will. as well. And so they tend to work together very nicely. It tends to be a really great time for any kind of channeling. So if you're an artist or a poet or a writer or anyone who likes to open yourselves up to a greater wisdom, likes to divine yourself, this tends to be a really good time when you can actually take inspiration and translate it into words. Take inspiration and understand how to best direct your will in order to manifest the core of you, in order to shine ever brightly. Keep your eye on that, which ultimately is the prize. And all of this is building, as I said, towards what I'm seeing as a really positive eclipse taking place next week. And this eclipse is happening in the early degrees, in the early part of the sign of Taurus. And it's speaking harmoniously. As soon as it happens, it starts speaking harmoniously, as leading up and afterwards, harmoniously to a lot of different power players, which suggests to me some very bold and very promising beginnings are very close. Now, I spoke about this in the monthly horoscopes for most signs. I will speak about it again. So I spoke about it in April. I will be touching on this eclipse in May, as well as talking about it in next week's horoscope for all signs as well. But remember, you need the tension. The tension is needed. The drive is needed. The motivation is needed. And the honesty is needed. If you're ever going to have that breakthrough that leads to a more fabulous life than you knew before. And if you can hold that, then you will start to see evidence of that before the week is done. How all this speaks to your sign is coming up right now. Hello, fabulous Aries. Well, this week, your ruling planet Mars is getting involved in this cardinal cross, and we've got Uranus in your sign as well. So a lot of the themes that I've been talking about over the last couple of weeks, we do continue them into this week as well. But I do think that because it's almost like all the peak moments are taking place in the span of a couple of days. And I think that given that your sign is the first sign, right? So you're sort of like first out of the gate. And I often say, like, if you want to be lucky as an Aries, if you want to be lucky, try to be first at whatever you do. So if you have to take an interview, try to be the first one to take that interview. If you have to give a presentation, try to be the first one, and on and on. So whatever it is that you do, try to be the first one. And because of that first kind of energy associated with your sign, chances are that by the time we actually reach these peak moments, I mean, maybe on Sunday, maybe on Monday, you'll be feeling this, but I do think that just as it starts hitting people, you have a realization, you have an understanding, you have that awakening, the proverbial awakening, where you understand what needs to change, what's just been sort of dragging its heels, what's been going on, and really has served its purpose, but you have not been embracing the prospect of maybe for a second sort of being out there before you know where you're going to land. It's like knowing that you have to take a leap of faith. It's really the faith part that really needs the most courage, and that's what you're being asked for. You want change, you know where change has to happen, but you're not really ready to make it. You haven't been ready to make it for whatever reason, and mostly the reason is consistency and safety. But now, as the reality of the situation sets in, as your desire for better starts to take hold, that is going to be enough to help you to cultivate the bravery to actually take one step, just one foot off the ground. And that will be sufficient to begin to launch you in a brand new direction. And I'm telling you, brand new directions are coming up for all of us. But I do think by the end of this week, you are going to start to see a much more inspiring vision. And it's very likely that it is going to be sort of in the, if you will, it's almost like a conversation helps you become aware of your worth and of your value. And that in turn allows you to cultivate the bravery needed to make a long needed change. Hello, fabulous Taurus. Well, Mercury moves into your sign this week, and this suggests to me a clarity of mind. So in the introduction, I spoke about clarity, okay? I spoke about the lights coming on. This tends to be a week with the conversations taking place with Mercury right now of inspiration, likely for you, very strongly, of awareness, of really seeing things all of a sudden, having a mini epiphany, if you will, very likely for you. But keep in mind that this energy is very necessary, but it's really building you towards a big breakthrough coming up next week. And so what I think is a very likely scenario to take place is it's almost as if the experiences are happening now, and the understanding, sort of the feelings, the tension, the, oh my goodness, why does this make me uncomfortable? I used to be into this. I used to like this. I used to identify with this. Why is it now not feeling right? You're likely to have the experience this week that informs the big shift in identity that's coming next week. And so allow yourself those experiences. It looks like some stuff is going to be shifting under the surface. And even if you can't give words to it in the beginning of the week, by the end of the week, you are set to have a series of conversations that begin the process of you gaining the clarity you need. And next week, boy, are you launching in some brave and bold new ways. It's like whatever discomfort is there gives way to self-knowledge, and that self-knowledge will give way to action that brings great peace and that brings you a sense of absolute enthusiasm for your life now and what it potentially can be so much more of. Hello, fabulous Gemini. Well, wherever your ruling planet goes, as I say quite frequently, wherever your ruling planet goes, so go you. Your ruling planet is your celestial representative in the sky. And this week we have your ruling planet moving into the sign just before yours. Now, when this happens, and it's particularly when it's Mercury, and it's particularly considering that your sign is known for activity, mental activity, the sign before yours has to do with the dream space. It has to do with what's happening on levels of the unconscious. And as such, Mercury moving in the sign just before yours denotes very important dreams taking place for you. Dreams that help bring clarity into your life, into your waking existence. And this is really a time to be documenting what it is that is coming up for you, because a lot of truth is going to be there, absolutely. Now, I'm going to put this out there, Geminis. The likelihood of you actually saying something in your sleep that ends up being a real truth teller, okay, is very, very strongly indicated. But it looks like the result of the truth that comes forward is very positive, is one that you like very much. And so if there's been any tension within a relationship, for example, I mean, after all, the ruling planet of your opposite sign is Jupiter, and Jupiter is involved in this cardinal cross. And so if there is any issue or something that does come up, I do think that it is likely while you're sleeping, you'll do something or say something that really ends up being tremendously healing, that reveals the depth of your feelings and what's really going on within you, and that helps the situation. And if it is not about another person, if it's not necessarily about relationships, if it's just you in your bed, then that's again why I say keep a dream journal, because the chances of you actually seeing something in that dream space that as soon as you wake up you document ends up being a tremendously healing balm on you and in your life. So trust what's happening on unconscious levels, because some of that information is striving to come forward and bring a lot of inspiration, bring a lot of healing into your life as well. Hello, fabulous Cancer. Well, this week we have your sign, cardinal sign. As I said before, in the last couple of weeks, I've been talking about this with you. You're going through a lot of shifts. You're going through a lot of changes, understanding who's with you, who's for you, what steps you need to take. You're very motivated. I'm not saying necessarily that you are likely to have these hugely dramatic changes, but I can't imagine how you could not, given that you are driven to have some changes. You're driven to take action. You're driven to experience change on the level of home, on a level of career, on a level of love as well, and yourself as well. It's like what I'm seeing is you're trying to unlock something, some energy, if you will, that you believe is then going to allow a flow to come to you, that's going to break open at some door and allow you to just ride a wave and enter a flow that's going to make everything and all things better. And that certainly is possible for you. But what I'm saying is, you might want to trust that sometimes it's the process that leads to you accessing that energy that you're trying to touch right now, accessing that wave that you're trying to ride right now. And what I mean by that is success, change, positive occurrences, they tend to be a long time coming, or at least they tend to be a part of an energy that rarely just comes out of nowhere, but that an energy that we've been cultivating for a while. And opening that door is not always something that just happens suddenly, where we find the key and we open the door and it happens in a span of a few minutes. Sometimes, certainly, we can feel that our paths have changed dramatically. But most of the time, it is that we are slowly creating the key. And then we're slowly figuring out what door to put it in. And then we're slowly starting to turn that key. And then we're opening it a crack and seeing what's behind there. You are in that process, so be patient with yourself. That door is opening for you. You're going to need just a little bit more patience. It's coming up ahead. Given this eclipse that's happening, this solar eclipse, I think is going to be so good for you. Yours is one of the signs I think that this eclipse is going to be really good for. And so if you can trust, especially in the beginning of the week, when you feel like that door isn't opening fast enough or that key isn't working fast enough, if you can trust and just do what's in front of you to do, you're going to find that the realization that the success that starts to find you, the shift, the riding that energy that you are able to eventually access, that's actually been a long time coming. You have to earn your spot almost on that wave, but you have been putting in the work and the universe is about to reward that. Hello, fabulous Leo. Well, it is your ruling planet, the sun, that is going to be met by Mercury. And whenever this happens, it does tend to bring to clarity a matter close to the heart. It does tend to bring a clarity to your understanding of just who you are and what is going to matter to you most in this life, and especially right now. But more importantly, how is it that you want to really shine your light and share? Now, this is a huge sort of spiritual, evolutionary question, if you will, for the Leo. The Leo, the highest spiritual understanding of your sign is that there's something within you that is worthy of shining and being seen, and you certainly are on that path. Now, if you can trust that that's the path you're on, you are going to find that regardless of how other people are navigating and sort of running around in the early part of the week, I do think that yours is one of the signs that's most likely to have and experience that aha moment, as it's been called by Oprah, or have that epiphany, as I called it at the beginning in the intro. Yours is certainly one of the signs that is most likely to have that epiphany, and it seems to be connected or very connected to your career and to your work. Now, keep in mind, next week's eclipse is building up to a big breakthrough in that area of life. I do think that this week you're likely to hear some news. So one way that this could play out is that you hear about the possibility of a promotion, or someone tells you that they're hiring for another position, or you run into somebody and they say, hey, why haven't you ever tried doing this for your career? You've been on this path for so long and you're not happy. So why don't you try this? Because you probably will be more happy. And if you can prioritize your happiness, and if you will listen to the cues that the universe is sending, then you'll be able to maximize the opportunities that are coming up next week. Another possible scenario, given where a lot of this activity is happening in the sky for you, a part of the sky that has to do not only with career, but it has to do with really higher ups, if you will, or people with power, people with authority, people who can actually help you up the ladder, power players, if you will. And it looks like you're about to make a really great impression on at least one power player, or at least you will make an impression on someone who ends up pointing the way to someone even higher up who can help you even more. So trust where it is that you're being led. Listen to the cues the universe is providing, because this is a really strong time in your life where the universe is going to try to get your work to match a calling, or rather get your career and your contribution and your legacy to match a calling. And I think a lot of Leos out there are going to be surprised at just what that looks like. Hello, fabulous Virgo. Well, this week your ruling planet will be meeting the sun. Your ruling planet will be speaking in harmony with Neptune as well, along with changing signs as well. And while the cardinal signs are doing all kinds of things, especially what I am seeing is the possibility of you still feeling a little bit uncertain about what's happening financially in your life, I would say don't you worry about it. Especially in the early part of the week, it seems like you're facing some fears, you're having some discussions, you're navigating the waters pretty well. But by the time we get you to the late part of the week, and all this energy starts building in a really harmonious position in the sky to you, which really is Mercury and the Sun, your ruling planet and the Sun moving through fellow air sign Taurus. I do think that this combination suggests that you are about to feel like a burden is lifted. You are about to feel that whether you want to say dreams come true or miracles can happen, certainly there's a restoration of faith. There's a sense that, hey, things really could turn out for the best. You know, maybe if I do this, maybe if that person said to do this and I actually do it, maybe things actually could be amazing. And if you do take the actions, chances are things are going to move in a very positive direction if you will let it. And how you let it is by listening and following up with action. The reason I say that is because, as I said in the introduction, Mercury and the Sun are speaking in harmony with Neptune. The thing is that the type of conversation they're having is known as a sextile, for those of you who are students of astrology out there. And this is a conversation of harmony, but it tends to be a conversation where it's not just about something very easy finding you, but it's about you being shown the way. It's about you being presented with keys and you've got to figure out what door you're going to put it in. It's about the opportunity to develop your talent, develop your skills. It's about the opportunity to be made better. But it's going to be up to you to listen to that. It's going to be up to you to decide how you're going to utilize that energy. If you can embrace the prospects, I do think you're going to find that even with the questions at the beginning of the week, you're going to find that as we move towards the end of the week, you are going to be feeling very lifted. And you're going to be feeling that there's a strong sense of promise in the air, that things really can work out very much to your advantage. Hello, fabulous Libra. Well, your sign, being a cardinal sign, is one of the strongest sort of reached this week, and certainly the energy that you've been feeling since last week. I think that for Libras, as I've been observing them, there's been this element of, yes, not always smooth sailing. However, there's been also within that, you know, whether you want to call it the eye of the storm. I don't think it's been a total storm, actually, for a lot of Libras out there. But regardless of your proverbial storm, there's an eye in the middle of it that is still, that is wise, that is able to see what's happening on the outside and not be a part of it. And that is giving you a tremendous amount of perspective. And that is putting you certainly at an advantage as well. I do want you to be mindful of projection this week. And what I mean by that is there is the possibility this week that you may, instead of identifying your own feelings and saying, okay, wow, I need to really behave differently, I need to not be doing this, the possibility is there that instead of owning your emotions and owning what you're feeling, you end up actually projecting that energy. And what I mean by that is it's a lot easier to look at someone else and say they should behave like this, they should be doing this, he or she could be doing that better, I can't believe he or she did that. Instead of saying, okay, wow, the fact that I'm seeing that, what does that say about me? What is it that I need to change? How is it that I need to evolve? How can I accept this person? Because ultimately everything you feel is about your learning and it's about your growth. And so do watch that. That is the only sort of thing that could come up this week where you can end up not taking full advantage of the week, not taking full advantage of this energy that ultimately is there to help you move towards greater love and greater wisdom. And it certainly is about greater love this week as well. Keep in mind also that it's almost as if with this conversation, there's an element there, especially where it comes to love and your understanding of love, that either you're going to have a breakthrough, okay, or you're going to allow yourself to sort of like sit and simmer in tension and keep the focus on them, which could lead to not necessarily a breakthrough that moves you towards that person, but actually ends up going the other way. And the way that you sort of sit with this or decide with this is if you can get honest with yourself as soon as those emotions arise. I'm not telling you to stay. I'm not telling you to go. I'm not telling you to envision anything. Ultimately, you did last week have a lunar eclipse in your sign. So you already kind of know what it is that you need to do. You know what it is that needs to shift or change in your life. And so be open to that prospect, because it does look like this week promises you the chance to really have this amazing moment that allows you to see why you are where you are, especially where it comes to love and your most important relationships and the people that you're closest to as well. And if you can own that energy, you're going to find that the breakthroughs are actually within you. The breakthroughs are actually happening on a level of your heart where you are letting greater love in than you knew before. Hello, fabulous Scorpio. Well, this week your ancient ruler, Mars, is involved in this lovely configuration that I've been talking about the last couple of weeks called a cardinal cross. And this does suggest a time when you may be feeling like something's got to change, something's got to give, something's got to break open, something's got to evolve already. And there can be an element of impatience in the air, but especially I do think that for your sign that understands that there's a process that you've got to go through. And also with Saturn currently in your sign, that understanding is heightened right now, that the earth, whether you want to call it the earth school, the earth plane, has its own lessons, has a way of going about doing things, and you've got to honor those lessons. You've got to honor the way in which things want to flow, the way in which things want to manifest, and you've got to honor sort of the laws of nature, if you will, that everything can and does pass if you will give it the time that it needs. And so you're being encouraged to do that, and yet one way that you're being encouraged to do that is by feeling the opposite, feeling like something's got to change right now, and I want to break through, and I want this, and I want that. Let that be there, okay? You can acknowledge that and bring your attention back to the moment. And I do think that even with that sort of feeling that something's got to change, by the time we get you to the later part of the week, you've got such positive energy taking place for you. You've got Venus reaching out in supreme harmony with Saturn in your sign. Now that alone should bring a perspective on how it is very much to your advantage to honor the physical plane, to honor our incarnation, to understand that there is a process to all things. That should be really nice for you. And that in turn, it's almost as if you're seeing how structure actually contributes to freedom and happiness, and how responsibility often is the pathway to greater fulfillment as well, greater self-actualization, that you need to be committed to that if you're going to experience it as well. And so you take all this into account, you take into account all the really positive energy that's happening, starting to happen in the opposite sign to yours, okay? And will only continue as we get towards the end of the month, as we build towards an eclipse, a solar eclipse taking place next week. And it does suggest to me that regardless of whatever tension may be there, regardless of what feels like it's simmering under the surface, by the time it's ready to come forward, you are liking what's coming forward. You are feeling very hopeful and feeling very bright and feeling light and lifted, feeling like a part of you on a level of spirit, on a level of heart, really have opened a doorway or opened a pathway. That in turn is going to allow you to shine even brighter. I think you start to see your way there before the week is out, and I think you start to attract some amazing supporters as part of this process. And as part of this process, I do think that love and partnership and a growing sense of what love is going to mean to you, a growing sense of what love actually brings to your life and adds to your life, all the good things that love can be, also start to set in as well. Hello, fabulous Sagittarius. Well, your ruling planet Jupiter is getting all involved in this cardinal cross that I've been talking about. It is a very important week in that. But I want you to keep in mind that by the time we get you into next week, and I look at the eclipse that's taking place, and again, I'll be here to talk about it then. But that particular eclipse is right after that eclipse happens, runs along very quickly and speaks in harmony with your ruling planet Jupiter. So even though this week Jupiter may be doing some things that might not always feel good, and it may be you that just feels a heightened sense of restlessness. Now, normally your sign, I always advise people with strong Sagittarian energy. I say to them, like, when you start to feel restless, when you start to feel discontent, that is a sign that you are not putting your happiness first. Sagittarius need something to feel enthusiastic about. They need something to look forward to, something that they're working towards, the next adventure, if you will. They need to be engaged in that process. It's not necessarily achieving a thing, it's about being in the path to actually achieving the thing, the adventure that is involved in a goal or a project or a travel or whatever the case may be. Whatever brings joy to your life, you've got to trust it. Mainly because if you don't honor it, and if you don't follow it, what ends up happening is you end up feeling really restless. You end up feeling really discontent, wondering what's going on and wondering why you're not happy. And while this process is there for a lot of us out there, it is especially obvious in you. And another sort of symptom, if you will, is a sense of self-righteousness. When you start thinking you know all the answers, that is telling you, when you're up on that soapbox, that is telling you that something's off for you, that you are not living according to your happiness, which is why you need to make other people wrong. You need to make yourself more right than other people in order to feel a sense of purpose, a sense of self even. But really, it's just sort of a mask, if you will, to the deeper learning that needs to take place, the deeper adventure that is actually calling you and honoring that adventure. I share all this with you because this week is a huge part of that process. This week can provide you a huge demonstration of all these things I just spoke about. And if you start seeing these things within yourself, that is a signal to you that you are really ready for change, that you are really ready to, as you recognize it, you start to realize, like, okay, wow, I can actually see it. I can actually see that I'm being that I have this discontent. I can actually see myself being self-righteous, being restless, being rebellious for no good reason, especially since you have a sense of your own self and a sense of freedom anyways. Once you start seeing it, then you're able to say, okay, why am I feeling this way? And that's the magic question. And that's the question that the universe is really leading you towards. So allow those feelings to be there in the beginning. By the time we get you to the later part of the week, you are finding answers that are very close to the heart, answers that feel very healing to you as well, and answers that promise to open the doorway to greater and greater happiness and all those good things that we believe that life should bring. Hello, fabulous Capricorn. Well, this week is sort of a celestial party, if you will. And the celestial party is about getting you to see the truth, getting you to open your heart, open your energy, sort of say to yourself, this matters, this doesn't. And really to just sort of, I'm just seeing almost like this burst taking place with you. And as part of that burst, it can either be that you just burst and let go of what doesn't matter, or that you kind of burst and all this emotion comes forward and you realize what really doesn't matter because you're giving energy to something that really doesn't matter. And the reverse is also true. You may find yourself actually feeling this enthusiasm, feeling this well of desire and what you want to manifest so badly sort of come up. And that is a clue to you as to where your work is. It is a week of a lot of breakthroughs, certainly, but I think the positive changes are really going to hit in next week. This week is about identifying what isn't working, identifying what you really don't want. By the time we get you to the end of the week, feeling a sense of clarity, feeling a sense of upliftment, feeling a sense of self-honesty as well. And given the fact that towards the end of the week we have Venus speaking in harmony with your ruling planet, Saturn, it does suggest to me that the sweetness, the advantage, the understanding that ultimately your goals and your dreams are meant to be fun, are meant to make your life sweeter and better and more enjoyable. All of that starts to set in, and there comes to be an understanding that who you are and what it is that you want, what it is that you're actually going for in this life is actually a lot closer than you previously realized. You may have been thinking it was a lot further because you thought it needed to be something very specific, but now you're actually going to see that you've actually been putting a lot of things into place without realizing it. And now by the time we get to the end of the week, the awareness starts to set in and you start to see what actually you have been building. At least one thing starts to try to reveal itself to you, try to take shape. But again, next week is the time of big breakthroughs. This week, work hard in the beginning of the week, and the rewards are going to start to be there towards the end of the week as what could be starts to slowly reveal itself to you, and you're going to find that you like that vision very much. Hello, fabulous Aquarius. Well, your ruling planet, Uranus, your modern ruling planet, is involved in this wonderful configuration that's very active in the first half of the week. This does tend to suggest that there are a lot of changes happening with you, not only on a level of mind, given where Uranus is right now in your sky, but also on a level of self. You know, I think about this idea, I think, therefore I am. That's a big understanding that's happening for you right now, but how does that actually balance with broader ideas? It's one thing to think just for the sake of thinking. It's another thing to really reflect. It's another thing to really understand, to learn, to change, evolve on a level of spirit. These are some of the lessons that are there for you right now, this week in particular. I am seeing also an element of you sort of like reaching for, whether it's a place in the world, whether it's an adventure, feeling like you need to be somewhere else. Now, I think a lot of you actually, given the sky in the early part of the week, it's almost as if a lot of you are actually saying to yourself, yeah, okay, I'm ready, I'm gone. And that's a very strong possibility for some of you, but do keep in mind that there is an element also taking place here of where home is going to be for you. So while the adventure is there, I think that has to balance with a consideration of where home is. Home might not be exactly where you thought it was, and home is not necessarily what it has been. And certainly if you feel an adventure calling and another place calling, you can make a home there, but it's questions around that that are here with you now. For those of you who seem to have a more stable sort of environment happening, that's really great. Yet I do think that there is something within you, maybe you can't put your finger on, but it's almost as if there's an element of not just considering other perspectives, but what I'm seeing really is mixed feelings is what I'm seeing with this configuration playing out. And that doesn't mean that they won't resolve themselves. Absolutely they will. But I do think that your answers are actually much deeper within than you realize. So whatever it is in the external world as you go about your life that seems to be not quite right to you, allow yourself to just sit with it to the best of your ability, because I do think that by the time we get you towards the end of the week and into next week, I think a lot of your answers are going to come from actually understanding your past, connecting with people from your past, connecting with your family as well. That is going to bring you a sense of stability and a sense of perspective as well. And with that perspective, you're going to find a clarity as to exactly where you are now, where you're supposed to be, and also what you really believe matters to you. And you start to live it more and more. Hello, fabulous Pisces. Well, this week we do have Venus continuing to move through your sign, speaking in harmony with Saturn in the sky. And, you know, I look at this configuration playing out, and like your opposite sign, it's likely speaking to matters of finance and money. It's likely speaking to, on the one hand, maybe some fears are there. On the other hand, maybe needing to sort of negotiate or reach a settlement, as the case may be. But more than anything, really, the ultimate lesson has to do with worth. It has to do with understanding that you deserve to share more of yourself and value what it is that you're giving. And as a result, the universe will return that to you. So there's an element of healing around issues of finances and money and your feelings about it and what you believe you actually deserve. However, having said that, it does look like while there is some sort of running around taking place, by the time we get you towards the end of the week and we've got the Sun and Mercury speaking in harmony with Neptune in your sign, your modern ruling planet, it does suggest that it really is a conversation that kind of lightens your burden, that restores a sense of who you really are, what you really believe, what type of person you really are. I'm reminded a little bit of how I know I've seen this play out before, and a lot of people, we tend to attract who we are, right? And I have a lot of really great people in my life, really nice people in my life as well. And I've heard people say over the years, I was waiting for that moment and I was going to get my revenge. But once that moment came, I just didn't do it. And I don't know why I didn't do it. And it's like, I've said this more often than I previously realized, but I've actually said this quite a bit to people, is because you're not that type of person. You're not the type of person who wants to go about getting revenge. And then there's like a sort of a nod of understanding. A scenario like that, I'll be honest with you, the possibility of a scenario like that presenting itself to you this week is there. And what I'm going to say to you is, instead of thinking about the best thing you could say, the most effective thing to say, because it does look like there is the possibility of a moment sort of coming up rather by surprise, you are going to like yourself a lot more, and you are going to feel a lot better about yourself and feel a sense of openness and possibilities a lot more if you are able to, the sooner the better, get to that place where you realize that you really don't want to be in a position of sort of returning energy that maybe you interpret as not so positive. If you can keep the energy and keep your focus about you and what you need to do, as it said, keep your side of the street clean. Behave in a way that is spiritually well for you. Behave in a way that allows you to respect yourself. And if you can do that, you're going to find that the inspiring energy that's attempting to find you in the later part of the week is able to come in that much clearer and is able to lift you that much higher. Well, thank you so much for watching. To all signs out there, it'll be a great week. Enjoy.